Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the ultimate Julius Katchen Brahms box on Eloquence. Now, let's just do a little historical overview. The Katchen recordings of Brahms have been issued and reissued constantly. This was the most famous of them, and this came out in... I don't know, like a bazillion years ago. The stereo recordings of all of the solo piano works are here, along with some of the piano forehand stuff. Let me see if I can get a date for this thing, because it actually is kind of interesting. This is long out of print, this little boxlet. And here we go. Oh, they don't tell me. Of course they don't tell me. It's so hard to find this information. Anyway, so this was the usual box, 6 CDs. This has 17 CDs. The reason, of course, is because Katchen also recorded a lot of the chamber music with piano, but he started making recordings for Decca in 1949, and there were mono recordings and stereo recordings. This is all the stereo stuff. There were the concertos. There's all kinds of stuff that he did in the name of Brahms. 17 CDs worth, things that were never before issued. And I have to say, Katchen was a labor of love for Universal Australia managing director, or whatever his title is. I don't know, excuse me if I get it wrong. Cyrus Mayer Honji, who is himself a very, very fine pianist. And originally, after this thing disappeared, he issued a Australian Decca, because Eloquence didn't really even exist then, set of Julius Katchen recordings under the fabulous catalog title number Catch 22. It was KACH 22. I remember that vividly. And he's always promoted Katchen's work, to his credit. When Australian Eloquence came out, Katchen recordings came out with Australian Eloquence at budget price, and they were much sought after by collectors. So thank you, Cyrus, for keeping Katchen's name in the public eye. If it hadn't been for him, I mean, you got to think about this. If it hadn't been for this one person working for a major label, a lot of this material would never have seen the light of day, and Katchen's name would not be nearly as familiar to music lovers as it is today. It just goes to show what a difference someone can make if they're actually in charge and know what they're doing at a major label, because Katchen deserves all the attention that we can lavish on him. He was a genius pianist. He died at the age of 42, around 1968, 69, somewhere in there. He had liver cancer. He was a dynamo. He gave marathon concerts, hundreds of recitals every year. He was just one of those incendiary people, kind of like Mendelssohn. They just burnt themselves out somehow. They were so vigorous, and his Brahms reflected that. He was a remarkable combination of vitality and exuberance and thoughtfulness, because he's an enormously intelligent guy. And Brahms was just the person, just the composer for him. Because Brahms was, on the one hand, a flaming virtuoso. I mean, in his early works and the early sonatas and whatnot, he was the Paganini variations. He was as capable as anybody back in the day, in his piano virtuoso days. But he was also, as we know, a somewhat reserved, highly intellectual, extremely thoughtful and meticulous. All of these characteristics played to Katchen's strengths. Now, most of the recordings in here are reviewed somewhere or other by our very own Jed Disler on ClassicsToday.com, including the big Decca Katchen box. So you should go and check out those reviews. I'm not going to second guess what Jed said, because I agree totally with everything he says. But beyond that, you can read about individual things in here, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I just want to tell you what's in the box, and hopefully I have and will continue to explain why Katchen matters and why you should hear these recordings. They remain reference editions for the Brahms piano music for the most part. So let's see what we have on these 17 fun-filled CDs. Some things are appearing for the very first time, and for various contractual reasons and whatnot. First, Piano Concertos numbers 1 and 2. These are marvelous performances, and they tend to be overlooked, first of all, because they're older, and second of all, because they were made at widely different times with different conductors. But what conductors? Piano Concerto number 1 is with Pierre Monteux, who, of course, played for Brahms, which is fantastic. And Piano Concerto number 2 is with János Ferencsik, fantastic Hungarian conductor, who we've listened to on his Hungarian recordings. Of Bartók and other things. He did a Beethoven cycle too that was pretty good. And he was a fine conductor and not as well known in the West as he should have been. So these are superb recordings of both concerti, and Katchen only did them once. A lot of the other stuff he did more than once. Then we've got the piano trios with the Suk, Joseph Suk and János Starker. Wonderful performance. And the cello sonatas with Starker. I mean, these were stupendous recordings, and they've held up extremely well. I mean, how could they not with soloists of this caliber? And Katchen was a wonderful chamber music player. For all of his, virtuoso bona fides and the fact that he was known as a extremely rambunctious character, he knew how to play chamber music, and he knew how to play Brahms' chamber music, and he was very, very, very considerate of his colleagues. They're beautifully integrated chamber music performances. Then he did the violin sonatas, constantly. First of all, we have Ruggero Ricci doing the violin sonatas. This is the mono set from, I think, 1954 or somewhere around there. Of course, it doesn't say that on the back. Why should they tell us? But yes, they were. And then he did numbers 2 and 3 again with Ruggero Ricci. Let's see, these were from 1957, those two. And then we've got the classic set of violin sonatas, which I have actually sitting right here. I think this is them. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. Yep, here they are. Here they are with Joseph Suk. Fantastic performances, really classics, reference recordings of the Brahms violin sonatas. And again, Suk, was not that well known in the West either. He was Dvorak's great-grandson, but aside from that, so there's that. Then we've got the Brahms clarinet sonatas. Let's see. Clarinet sonatas 1 and 2. Thea King over here, and with Michael Portal over here. So he did those a couple of times. And then we've got all of his solo piano stuff. He was supposed to do, by the way, the quintet, the piano quintet and the piano quartets, but they were scheduled evidently, but he passed away before he could make those recordings, which is a terrible, terrible shame. Okay, so we've got the sonata number 3, the intermezzo in E flat, and the Handel variations, and these are his earliest recordings. These were issued in 1950, so they were recorded in 1949. And he started right away doing Brahms with Decca. That was his guy, and you could see why. Then we've got the Handel variations again, and the Paganini variations, stunningly well played. I mean, they're just gorgeously played. And then the Handel variations again, and the Paganini variations again, stunningly well played. Beautiful performances. There are differences. There are differences in nuance, slight differences in tempo. The second part of the Paganini variations, the second book and the second recording is a little faster than the first book. But it's interesting to make the comparisons because they're not identical performances. Like I said, he was thoughtful, but just an amazing virtuoso as well. And so you get a very comprehensive combination of intelligence and technique in all of these performances. Then we've got the variations. The Schumann variations on an original theme, Opus 21, number 1, the variations on Hungarian song, Opus 21, number 2, and the Rhapsody in G minor, followed by Volume 4, the Hungarian dances, And let's see, all of the Hungarian, all 21 of them. The waltzes, Opus 39, in the version for solo piano, and the Rhapsodies, Opus 79, numbers 1 and 2. The other pianist, by the way, in the piano forehand stuff is Jean-Pierre Marty. It's very, very good in the Hungarian dances. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh, the sonatas, numbers 1, 2, and the Klavierstücke, Opus 76. Don't come up here now, Finster. She's eyeing her approach, but I'm blocking her access here, which is probably a smart thing. Piano Sonata number 3, the Scherzo. Oh, here she goes. Come here. Go down. Thank you. The Scherzo number Piano Sonata number 3, the Scherzo in E flat minor, Opus 4, and the Ballades Opus 10, and last but not least, the late piano works, the Fantasies, Intermezzi, and Klavierstücke, in the Opus 116 through Opus 119. So that's the 17 discs of Katchen doing Brahms. And, this is going to be, I suspect, your last chance to get all this stuff. And it's totally comprehensive. There are more things in here than there were even in the Katchen Decca box, I think. I have to check the Katchen Decca box. Well, that's all right. But it's all here. There are previously unpublished things here, and actually quite a few. So, get your Katchen while you can. It's essential Brahms, really essential Brahms. Beautiful performances all the way through. No weaklings, no dead spots. Just a brilliant artist in his most comfortable and totally wholly identified with composer and music. Great legacy. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you, Cyrus. Thank you all. Take care.